So we just got a new selection pack here at the end of the month, and there's 2 cards in particular that I want to talk about today, and these 2 are game changers. They're the 2 Dominus trap cards, Dominus Purge and Dominus Impulse. These are going to be game changing hand traps for Master Duel, and hand traps that are actually trap cards. Now, your opponent does have to control a card for you to activate this card from your hand, but I mean that's not a hard requirement at all. You know, if they literally activate any card, these cards are live, and these cards do have certain restrictions. If you use them from the hand, they will lock you out of certain attributes for the rest of the game. For example, Dominus Purge, if you use this card from the hand, then you cannot activate Dark, Water, or Fire monster effects for the rest of the duel. And likewise, Dominus Impulse, if you use it from the hand, will lock you out of the other 3 attributes for the rest of the game, which are Light, Earth, and Wind. So not every deck can support or run these cards. However, if your deck can run these cards and your deck doesn't conflict too much with the attributes that these cards restrict, then I would highly recommend playing these cards. So these cards have very powerful effects for hand traps, for being hand traps. Also, the benefit of these compared to normal hand traps, such as, you know, stuff like Ash, Maxi, so on and so forth, is that, again, these are trap cards, which means that unlike other hand traps, unlike the monster hand traps, they cannot be hit by Call by the Grave. They also are likely not able to be crossed out designated, because not only does your opponent have to, you know, draw the one of cross out designator, but they also have to be playing the card itself in their deck to be able to cross it out. And once again, not every deck can run these cards, so the likelihood of your Dominus trap card being actually crossed out in the game is not that high. And of course, being trap cards, they don't they don't trigger triple tactics talents, and you don't get punished by that. So these are just reliable hand traps that are, unlike other hand traps, are not likely to be stopped by conventional means that people do use to stop normal hand traps. And yeah, Dominus Purge here is just basically an Ash Blossom. When a card is activated by your opponent that adds a card to their hand, you know, you can negate the effect just like that. So it's like 3 more copies of Ash. Notable in Master Duel, because Ash is notably very strong in Master Duel because of the existence of cards like Maxi, and Purge is another semi-out to Maxi that decks that can run Purge can have. Now, it's not a perfect out to Maxi. Like, unlike Ash Blossom, you cannot Dominus Purge a Maxi if you're going first, because your opponent is likely not they're likely not controlling a card on the field, so you can't activate it from your hand, so that doesn't work. However, if you're going second, and as we all know, the most frustrating thing in Master Duel or any format of Maxi Legal is when you go second and your opponent already got to play the game, but then they also drop the Maxi on top of it. Dominus Purge gives you a way to fight the Maxis being dropped and you going second at the very least. And on top of that, you know, it's just Ash Blossom. Like, Ash Blossom is a very versatile effect. You know, every single deck has stuff you can hit with Ash Blossom. Likewise, every deck has cards you can hit with Dominus Purge, so it's just another generic good hand trap. And then we have Dominus Impulse, which is an even more insane effect. This card negates the effects of special summon monsters, or not special summon, Jesus Christ, no, it's even better than that. This basically just negates any effect that special summons. And can you think of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that special summon? Like, can you think of every single card in Yu-Gi-Oh that's relevant as special summons, right? Like, it's not like the entire game is based around special summoning or anything, right? You know, like, you hit imagine, like, you can now negate a Requiem trying to summon an engraver from deck. You can negate Hallowed Azamina. You can negate any damn thing. If your opponent controls a card, you can negate a fucking Nibiru with this too. You can negate Bestials. Any card that mentions special summoning, you can negate this with Dominus Impulse. That's absolutely insane. Okay, so in this video, I mainly wanted to cover some of the best and most notable decks that can and should be playing these Dominus trap cards. However, obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover every single deck that can play these. So if you want to see even more decks that can run these cards, go check out the comments, because I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that named even more decks down there. So first, let's go over some decks that can play Dominus Impulse. And we're going to start with what I believe is going to be one of the best decks moving forward after the ban list when Beatrice gets banned, and that's going to be Fire King Snake Eyes. And it's probably going to be the best way to play Snake Eyes, actually. And, you know, one of the big reasons why I believe this is because this deck can run Dominus Impulse, and that, you know, Dominus Impulse, absolutely insane hand trap. Negating special summons as a hand trap is insane. And unlike the other Snake Eyes builds, you know, the Fiendsmith, Azamina Snake Eyes build, the deck that runs the regularly runs the Fiendsmith engine, and sometimes even runs the Millennium engine still. Maybe they will still run it post Beatrice ban. Well, because the other Snake Eyes build runs both these engines, that other Snake Eyes build is unable to run Dominus Impulse, because Dominus Impulse, again, locks you out of light, earth, and wind effects for the rest of the duel if you use it as a hand trap. And Fiendsmiths are light, and Millennium monsters are earth, so that's already 2 out of the 3 attributes that get shut off after they use Dominus Impulse. So the other Snake Eyes build, the Fiendsmith Snake Eyes build, is not going to be able to touch this card without, major conflicts. So that's one point in favor of Fire King Snake Eyes. And the other is that Fire King Snake Eyes, it doesn't need the Fiendsmith cards because it doesn't need it for consistency. Right? This deck has more starters and more ways to play the game than the other Snake Eyes deck. So, especially with Beatrice getting banned, the other Snake Eyes deck, I feel, is going to face some consistency issues because it just lost a lot of ways into its very limited Snake Eyes engine, as you can see here. Whereas Fire King Snake Eyes still has additional ways to get into its engine without relying on the Snake Eyes cards. They have Fire King Volcanics, which is another starter. You have cards like Fire King Island and Sanctuary, which are basically starters if you open them with any other fire monsters. And the deck's engine is just a lot more comprehensive than the Fiendsmith and Millennium engines that the other Snake Eyes decks runs, because without Beatrice, those engines don't bridge into Snake Eyes, into your actual Snake Eyes cards as well anymore. But yeah, first of all, it has to be mentioned that not every single card works with Dominus Impulse. In every deck with Dominus cards, there's going to be at least a couple of monsters that conflict with the Dominus Impulse, mostly being either hand traps or some niche cards in the extra deck. And for the most part, that's not a big deal. As long as you're smart with how you play your cards, you shouldn't be bothered by the conflict too much. For example, right, Dominus Impulse conflicts with light and earth and wind hand traps, and a lot of commonly played hand traps do happen to be these attributes. You have hand traps like Valor, which is light, Droll and Fulas, which are wind, and obviously Maxi, which is earth. And then not shown here, but Nibiru is also a light. So you would think that there would be a bit of a conflict with Dominus Impulse and these attributed hand traps. However, I mean, the very simple solution is that if you just draw Dominus Impulse and these other hand traps, just use the other hand traps first, like Forehead. Okay, problem solved. Okay, if you open Maxi and Dominus Impulse, use your Maxi before your Dominus Impulse. See if your Maxi resolves, and then Dominus Impulse if it gets negated by an Ash Boss. Like you're fine either way. Either you resolve your Maxi, or they used an Ash Blossom on their Maxi, and then you get to negate their special summon effect anyways, right? Or like if you open Droll or Valor or Dominus Impulse, try to resolve your Valor or Droll or your Fuelos before you activate Dominus Impulse. Now, I didn't include Nibiru in here, because Nibiru is a bit weird with Dominus Impulse, because if you're going to wait all the way until your Nibiru is live, then you probably missed a good chance to Dominus Impulse, so that's why I'm not including Nibiru in the hand traps that I play here. But these other hand traps, Valor and Droll and Fuelos and Maxi, even though they do quote-unquote conflict with Dominus Impulse, you can just use them first, and you'll be mostly fine. Now, you don't have to play these either. If you're really worried about the confliction, you can just cut these hand traps for other hand traps that don't conflict as much, mainly the dark-based ones, which are going to be Crow and Bestials. If you're really worried about the conflict, I wouldn't cut Maxi though. Keep playing Maxi. Maxi is just too broken, even with Dominus Impulse. But if you're not comfortable with playing Fuelos, Droll, and Effect Valor, which honestly, these are mainly just cross-out targets that I put in here, for the most part, because the main hand trap you want to be using is Dominus Impulse anyways. But yeah, if you don't even want these as cross-out targets, you can just replace them with Crows and Bestials, or just cut down on your hand traps and get closer to 40 cards, and then just play games going second that are more reliant on your Fire King engine instead, which is still a viable strategy because the Fire King engine is so good playing into boards anyways. But yeah, those are the conflictions with some hand traps, which are mostly fine. And then there's niche extra deck cards. Well, actually, I think looking at these the only extra deck monster that conflicts with Dominus Impulse is Appaloosa. And it's really not big of a deal anyways, because first of all, Appaloosa is a card that you make going first mainly. You don't make Appaloosa very much going second. If you're going second, you're going to be mainly trying to see Atlantis OTK your opponent and so forth, and then breaking their board. So making Appaloosa doesn't come in to play that often going second. So if you Dominus Impulse, if you're going second and you Dominus Impulse, that locks you out of Appaloosa. But at the same time, making Appaloosa going second already is not that common of an occurrence anyways. And if you're going first, right, and you make Appaloosa, you don't have to use Dominus Impulse from your hand, because you're going first, you can simply do this amazing innovative play called Set Dominus Impulse, like it's a trap card. And if you activate this card when it's set and not from your hand, then you don't get locked out of the effects anyways, which means that if you do have an Appaloosa, just set the Dominus Impulse, and then you can use Dominus Impulse and not lock out of your Appaloosa as well. But yeah, those are just some minor notes on how to play with Dominus Impulse and certain attributes that it locks out of. And for the decklist itself, the Snake Eyes engine is very limited, but 1 Ash, 1 Oak, 1 Poplar, 2 Bonfire, and then we're playing the Azamina engine as well, so Diabellstar plus Deception of the Sinful Spoils. These are just additional starters for Snake Eyes. Like, if you want to see how to use the Azamina cards and Diabellstar cards in Fire King Snake Eyes, go check out this combo video I made about all the Azamina combos with the Fire King cards. And then, of course, we have 3 Alcanics, 1 Arvata, and 1 OG Garunix as like semi-bricks. Flameburst is another brick. And then 1 Garunix and 2 Kirin. 1 for 1, which you technically don't have to run this because we have a lot of starters now with the Deceptions already. But I mean, more starters is always nice. 2 Bonfire, the 1 Original, the 1 Hallowed, 1 Island, 1 Sanctuary, the Deceptions, the Skyburn, and the Wanted, and then the rest of it is just non-engine, like Ash, Maxi, Dominus, Impulse, Imperm are the strongest non-engine. I've noticed that these Dominus cards have bonus effects where if you activate them while you have a trap in your graveyard, not only do you negate the effect, not only can you negate the effect of the card that you use this against, but you also get to destroy it as well. So it's literally becomes a solemn warning, just negate and destroy. So if you happen to draw Imperm and Dominus Impulse together, that's insane. That's like, you kind of just win the game there. You Imperm their first thing, then you Dominus Impulse, negate their second thing, and destroy their card. Like, that's crazy. And yeah, then these hand traps I already mentioned. If you don't want to run Full Loss, Roll, and Effective as cross-out targets, you don't have to, but it's not that big of a deal even if you do draw them together as mentioned. And the extra deck, because we're not playing the Fiendsmith engine and we're not playing the Millennium engine, this deck has way more extra deck room than the Snake Eyes, Azamina's Fiendsmith, or like the Snake Eyes, Fiendsmith, Millennium decks that you've been used to for the past couple months. But we have like Azamina, Ilya Silva, and Murcielago for the Deception targets, and then we have a lot of space. So like Zombie Vampire and Hyung, obviously. 1 Linkuriboh, the Sunlight Wolf, the Hida. We have room for both Charmers, Hida and Dark, and Dark is very, very important because, or it's very good because when you go Zombie Vampire guarantees you're able to go to Dark. So if you mill any Dark monster they have, then you can simply go Dark and continue going. But also if you mill your opponent's Diabellstar, that's lit because then you get access to your own Deception engine that way. And SP, Promethean Princess, Ambler Whale, Appaloosa, and again, because we have extra space, we have room for the Zealantis plus Raging Phoenix OTK that the other Snake Eyes deck also didn't have room for. So, yeah, look out for this deck. Not like just in the future, but like just look out for this deck right now because Dominus Impulse just released, and this is, I believe, the strongest deck that plays Dominus Impulse. So, yeah. And next we have just everyone's favorite go with second deck, Tenpai. And Tenpai being a fire-based deck means that it can run Dominus Impulse. Now, this does look a little weird, I'll admit, because this deck plays a lot of hand traps that conflict with Dominus Impulse in theory, way more than the Fire King deck, for example. You have stuff like Veilers, you have stuff like Ogre, you run 3 Fool Lots because you were going second deck. So, you might think that it does conflict with Impulse a little bit. I mean, it does a little, but at the same time, as I mentioned, as long as you're smart with how you use your hand traps, you should be fine. Like, if you open double Veiler, Ogre, Fool Loss, Impulse, I mean, it's pretty clear what you have to do, right? You use your hand traps that get locked out of Dominus Impulse first, and then use the Dominus Impulse afterwards, and then you're fine. But like generally, if you have that many hand traps, your opponent's not getting that far anyway, so you're probably fine, right? And yeah, this deck, so with the balance, Shang Kaiman's going from 2 to 1, and you might be thinking this deck's like lost some consistency and so it's bricky as hell, but I mean, this deck was already bricky as hell before the span list, and it was still the second best deck in the Duelist Cup. So, yeah, mainly because, like, if you get stopped, it's not a big deal because you can stop your opponent all the time anyways, because you definitely run more non-engine than your opponent does. So like if you get stopped for a turn, that's fine. You can stop your opponent for another turn, and you're also pretty lit there. Also, there's other consistency plays that this deck has, such as Hida, crashing Hida. If you get any 2 monsters on the field, for example, if you just have a Hydra on the field, but your opponent, like let's say your opponent imperms or Valors your Hydra and end your turn, but then going back to your opponent, you have more non-engine to stop your opponent, so it passes back to you. As long as you have 2 monsters, you can go into Hida. You can go Hida, crash into any of your opponent's monsters, search Genroku in the damage step, summon Genroku. Then you have OTK right there in the battle phase, in the damage step, dodging a bunch of cards like Ash and Valor in the well, okay, maybe not Ash specifically, because you can just Ash the Genroku, but you know, stuff like Valor's, Maxi, who cares, because you're already in the battle phase, it's already too late. Full turn 3. Yeah, this deck, even though you're playing a lot of attrition games, and a lot of times you don't end up OTKing your opponent going second, as long as you don't lose, and you're probably not going to lose because of look at all these fucking non-engine you run to stop your opponent for another turn anyways, then you can still win out in a prolonged sort of a grind game type of thing. And yeah, the only light hand trap again that I'm not running specifically because of Impulse is Nibiru, because Nibiru plus Impulse is very weird, because again, you have, in order for your Nibiru to be live, you have to let your opponent play a lot, and you're probably passing up a lot of Dominus Impulse activations in the process. Whereas stuff like Valor and Ogre, you just use them more instantly, and Full Loss especially, you can use it instantly. So there's not much conflict with Impulse, just you're able to use these first for Impulse most of the time pretty seamlessly. And for the Tenpai engine itself, again, 3 Hydra, a Fadra, 2 Genroku, 2 Dora. If you wanted to, you could bump Genroku and Dora to 3 for more starters, but that's not my favorite way to build this deck, because the thing with Hydra, Genroku, and Dora is that these are all normal summons, and this deck already has 7 normal summons in a deck that's mainly going second, so you draw the 6th card anyways. You really don't want to clog your hand with that many normal summons, because you can only play 1 of them a turn. It's not ideal. This is why we like the Blaster tech, because Blaster is not a starter. It's not just a starter. It's not just a normal summon. It is an extender, which means that you can use. Obviously, if you don't have any Tenpai dragons, you can use Goldstar to search a Hydra or Dora or whatever. But if you have any of these dragon monsters, unlike if you had Dora or Genroku, you can use Goldstar to search the Chandra instead and actually use that as an extender. So if your opponent does stop your normal summon, the Goldstar lets you have additional plays past a 1 hand trap, whereas drawing Dora and Genroku in addition to Hydra does not really help you that much. And yeah, obviously you have to run the 1 Blaster. I draw this card like it's my fucking job, but surprisingly, this card is not useless in hand. I've plopped plenty of cards with Blaster before to let my LTK go through, but also keep in mind that funnily enough, you can summon Blaster with Kaiman. So like in the battle phase, many times I've gone Kaiman, out Genroku, special the Blaster that's stuck in my hand, and then special the Genroku later, and then you get like a free extra 28 damage and like a level 7 non-tuner body in the process. So that's just something you can do. And a card that I really kind of like is Fiendsmith, and this might be too gimmicky because it depends on link summoning, and there's plenty of matchups where Fiendsmith is not good, or matchups where by the time Fiendsmith is live, it's not worth it to drop anymore, like against decks like White Forest, for example, which was like the second or third best deck to do this cup. But if you can resolve this and you can special summon this card is nuts, because this card has targeting protection, which means that your Hydras and your Tenpai monsters are protected from Valor and Imperm if you manage to land the Fiendsmith. Fiendsmith is also a dark, so it has, unlike some of these other hand traps, Fiendsmith has 0 conflicts with Dominus Impulse, and at worst is also an additional body, which I mentioned before, lets you go into Hida plays, Hida Crash, Search Genroku plays, and lets you go into Peruvian Princess plays as well. If your opponent has like an Ash in the grave, you can go Hida, Ash, and then like reborn another one of your Tenpai monsters and try again on following turns. But yeah, if you can get Fiendsmith off, I really like this card. It's just I'm not sold on how often that this card will actually be good, And depending on how Snake Eyes is being played in the future, it might not even be that great against Snake Eyes, but you know, I have a Royal Rare, so, you know, might as well test it out here. Obviously, Magnamud is like the most brutal card in the entire game. If your opponent is on Tenpai and they resolve Magnamud, you feel like you literally want to just leave as soon as that resolves. It's, yeah. Then of course, Duster, Heavy Storm, mainly because I am running the Phantasme in addition to the Magnamud, so if you're running stuff like Lightning Storm, that conflicts a bit more. And then you can say the same thing about Imperm too, but Imperm plus Dominus Impulse is like the god forbidden combo, so like I don't want to cut Imperm in a lot of decks that are running the Dominus cards. I want to try to avoid cutting Imperm if I can, just because of that, the chance of drawing these two together. And you got Droplets, you got the one Kaiman, the one Summon, and something. At the by the end of 2025, let's make a bet on which of the fire archetypes is gonna have more limited cards, Snake Eyes or Tenpai, because like it could right now it could go either way. And the extra deck, so the extra deck, I don't think there's very many conflicts with Dominus Impulse. So you have the Rose Dragons. Moonlight Rose is a sort of a conflict, but it's not. Moonlight isn't really a very integral part of the extra deck. Like you could actually just cut this for something else entirely, and you wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like Samurai Destroyer, which Samurai Destroyer also conflicts, but again, these are niche extra deck cards. You go into these like one in every like 15 to 20 games. It's not that big of a deal if they get shut down by Impulse. Meteor Burst is a fire. These are fires. Dragon Dragon is a fire. Bloody Rose is a fire. Sangenpai is a fire. Baron de Fleur conflicts with Impulse, but again, Baron doesn't come up every game either, and you can always like choose to make a different rank. Like you can make a different level 10 synchro besides Baron if you Impulsed earlier that game, so it's fine. Typhon does not conflict with Impulse, so that's very nice because a lot of games you're gonna win with Typhon beatdown because your opponent is gonna play into your hand traps. They're gonna not get very far, and then you can slap a Typhon on any of your hand traps or any of your Tenpai monsters even after it gets stopped. Then you're still far ahead because then you're playing Typhon control with like still 2 to 3 more none in your hand, and when it could be Dominus Impulse too. Almirage is to turn any of these hand traps into a SP line or a Hita line. So there's that Hieratic Seal, and then Promethean Princess to reuse your Tenpai Dragons if they got stopped in earlier turn. But yeah, Tenpai, this deck is. Unfortunately, this deck's not going away. Now, there is one thing that I should note is that this deck, I don't know if this deck is helped or hurt more by the Dominus cards, because Dominus Impulse is a ridiculous hand trap, and obviously Tenpai is a deck that can play Dominus Impulse. So in a way that's a buff for Tenpai. At the same time, Dominus Impulse and Dominus Purge are also 3 additional cards in the deck that can stop Kaiman. So in the decks that can run Impulse and Purge, those decks have 3 additional copies of Ash Blossom essentially that can stop Kaiman, which is already limited. And if you just stop the ones, you don't have to worry about it again for the rest of the game. So it's to be determined whether the addition of the Dominus cards are either a buff for Tenpai or a hit to Tenpai. But you know, we'll have to see next format. You know, after the ban applies and everything like that. So next we have an actual trap deck that plays Dominus Impulse, which is Labrynth. And as you know, every single Labrynth monster is a dark monster, so of course you can use Dominus Impulse. And while Dominus Impulse is annoying for Labrynth to face as well because it can negate special summons, therefore it can negate its additional 3 Ash Blossoms essentially that can be used to negate your welcome Labyrinths. At the end of the day, Dominus Impulse is a super powerful normal trap card, and anytime a good normal trap card is released, you know Labrynth is gonna abuse it, right? And the fact that this can be used as a hand trap as well to help going second, which is one of the biggest weaknesses of Labrynth, is even extra benefits. And also being a trap deck, you don't worry about the Dominus Impulse's the Dominus Impulse's bonus effect being live or anything, because this Dominus Impulse in Labrynth, it's always going to destroy the card because you're always going to have trap cards in your graveyard, especially a build like this. So this is a sort of a hybrid build. This is like a half Labrynth and half furniture and half trap heavy Labrynth build. I believe this is similar to the top 100 deck list from the last Duelist Cup, where I believe one of the Labrynth topping players used a build similar to this, where it ran furnitures and stuff for consistency, and like Ariana for like some more power and some more speed, especially if you're playing against a mirror match and your opponent's playing a trap Labrynth build and you're playing a Labrynth build with furnitures. You're gonna go way far ahead in that mirror match. But also, instead of relying on hand traps to stop your opponent, which frankly Labrynth was never gonna do, especially in the format with like Snake Eyes, Fiendsmith, Millennium being the best deck. Instead, it relies on using your powerful trap cards to break boards instead, if you so manage to go second. And if you don't go second, if you go first, your opponent's gonna have a bunch of dead hand traps versus you, like Droll, Baylor, Imperm. Who the hell cares about those? But when you just set 3, set 4, set 5, and yeah, that's pretty much the idea behind Dominus Impulse. It's just yet another strong trap card in a deck that abuses the strongest normal trap cards in the game. And for the ratios, obviously we have Maxi and Shifter as well, so because this is not a build fully relying on furniture, you don't care about shifting yourself that much. Even then, I would probably advise furniture Labrynth builds to play Shifter anyways, but yeah, Shifter, Maxi, the strongest hand traps in the game they resolve, besides Dominus Impulse. But now you have 3 extra copies of Dominus Impulse too, so that's nice. And going Dominus Impulse plus Arius with literally any other trap card is also insane, because you can go Arius, set anything, like set like a Daruma Karma Cannon, set a big welcome or whatever, set a trap trick for like simultaneous equation cannon, resolve your bomb of a trap card when you go second, and then you have a Dominus Impulse that's gonna act as a Solemn Warning and destroy a card on top of negating that special summon effect after resolving your Arius. That sounds crazy to me. I actually might consider bumping Arius up to 3, because that actually sounds kind of nice. And the one Kuklog is just for plays with Ariana when you want to speed up the game, when you want to end the game earlier, you don't want to grind your opponent that often. And just having an option for furniture is nice, especially the one Ariana. You're not trying to normal summon this turn 1 or anything. In fact, normal summoning this turn 1 is actually probably detrimental most of the time, because it plays into your opponent's hand traps. They're stuff like Imperms and Baylors, stuff like that, which are normally dead. You give them value, whereas if you just play the one Ariana, you're going to be using this to summon. You're going to be using your Welcome Labrynth to summon Ariana. Most of the time during your opponent's turn, or like during end phases where your opponent can't actually hand trap this, and then guarantee to get the search off that way. So, yeah, then you have a lovely, always open with this card, and 2 Lady Labrynth. Can maybe consider running 3, although probably wouldn't run 3 in a half furniture build, because you already run a bunch of other monsters anyways. And then, like, yeah, it's just the best normal traps that you see from enemy Labrynth deck. Trap Trick, get search anything. Ice Dragon Prison, Welcome Labrynth, Daruma, Big Welcome, Simultaneous Equation Cannon, Dominus Impulse, Solemn Strike, because Strike can negate Ash Blossom too. So this is the best counter trap, and then a couple Floodgates, because Rivalry and Skill Drain is pretty good this format. And 1 rollback mainly, so like if you get blown out by something like a board breaker or something, you can at least chain like a trap card with your Lady Labrynth, and then Lady Labrynth can set the rollback, and the rollback gets popped, and then you have rollback for like trap trick and rollback for like whatever else trap cards you set. It lets you play through board wipes, and like you don't want to really open this card, especially if you don't run that many Ariana, because you don't have as easy access to your furnitures as a full furniture Labrynth build does. So you don't want this in your hand really. Just kind of want to search as utility. But yeah, then the extra deck is just simultaneous equation target cannon target. It's just simultaneous equation. That's pretty much it. You got level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fusions, and then 2 rank 3s, 2 rank 4s, 2 rank 5s, 2 rank 6s, and then you have 1 flex spots for whatever you want. It's gonna be a Chaos Angel. Although Chaos Angel, I'm not actually sure, because Chaos Angel is weird because it's a dark monster, but it gets treated as a light monster. No, it doesn't get treated as light. Well, I'm tripping. This is a dark monster through and through. Yeah, you can run Chaos Angel here, like that's fine. No conflict at all. But Typhon is just realistically, Typhon's gonna come up more, especially when you're not playing a full furniture build, just a half furniture build like this. But yeah, obviously there's other ways to play Labrynth as well. You can play a trap heavy build, or you can just play straight up furniture Labrynth. And either way, regardless of how you decide to play Labrynth, you probably want to include Dominus Impulse somewhere in your deck, because the broken normal trap card in a Labrynth deck just makes sense, right? So now let's cover some Dominus Purge decks. And this is probably going to be the most popular deck and the most common deck that's going to be playing Dominus Purge. It's Blue Eyes. It's not really a surprise to anyone. The Blue Eyes is a fully light-based deck, and therefore it doesn't conflict with Dominus Purge at all, because Dominus Purge just shuts down Dark Water and Fire. So, yeah, this is mostly a standard-ish hand trap Blue Eyes build, mid-range Blue Eyes build. We're not going for super wombo combos or anything, but we are playing the Jet Dragon because we have more access to it with Neo Kaiser Seahorse, since you can send Jet Dragon to the grave if you already have access to like your Blue Eyes and stuff like that, you know, so on and so forth. The deck list itself is mainly standard, so it's not really going to spend too much time going over the deck list, because it's literally just running. It's just literally, you see your best cards, you just run 3 of them, and that's it. And then, you know, you have the 1-off search targets. Of note is that because Blue Eyes has an in-archetype trap card that it can search in Majesty of the White Dragons, you can easily make your Dominus Purge's bonus effect live, where it can destroy the card in the gates as well. So, like, for example, if you have access to Purge, you can maybe do a line that searches Majesty instead when you go first. That way, you turn on the pop effect of your Dominus Purge as well, instead of just in the gate. And yeah, I don't think there's very many conflictions with this at all. The main conflict with Dominus Purge, it's going to be Ash Blossom, because Ash Blossom is the one hand trap. It's a fire hand trap, so therefore, you know, fire is one of the attributes that Dominus Purge does turn off. But again, at the same time, like, it's not hard to deal with this. Just if you draw both, just activate Ash Blossom first. Not a big deal, not hard. If you draw Dominus Purge and don't draw Ash Blossom, or you just draw one or the other, that doesn't matter, because you're not, like, if you draw Purge without Ash Blossom, it doesn't matter that you're locking yourself out of fires if you don't have the Ash in the first place anyway. So yeah, the ratios, again, it's 2 Blue Eyes, 3 Sage, 3 Maiden, 3 Kaiser Seahorse, 1 Jet Dragon, 3 Piri Rice Map, 3 Wishes. These are like all of the starters. These are your wishes maxed out for all the starters. Not running Mathematician. Mathematician doesn't conflict with Dominus Purge, which is kind of funny, but I think Kaiser Seahorse is just better. It's more versatile than Mathematician most of the time. It just doesn't get a draw if it gets destroyed by battle, which, frankly, if it gets that far, if you're getting to the point where your Mathematician is getting destroyed by battle, you probably are in a very bad position to begin with. But yeah, then you have 1 Roar, 1 Mausoleum. I always open this card. And then, you know, 1 Majesty, 1 True Light, the actual brick. Unfortunate. I think the card Dominus Purge, the effect to destroy, and then if you have a track board in your graveyard, so the track board has to be in your graveyard. So Dominus Purge does not work with True Light most of the time, because True Light is not going to be in your grave. So the True Light is not going to give Dominus Purge its bonus effect. It's going to be Majesty most of the time. Unless something goes wrong and your True Light got Ogre or something, then I guess it makes your Purge better, but you kind of want to avoid situations where you're triggering Purge with True Light, because that means your True Light is gone, and probably your field as well. And yeah, the non-engine here is 3 Valor, because Valor has synergy in Blue Eyes because you search it. Then 3 Ash, 2 Maxi, 1 Fool Loss, which is just a cross-out target, and then 3 Infirm and 3 Dominus Purge, so that's like 15 hand traps. Not bad, 15 hand traps, 15 starters, normal summons, and then a few bricks, which you gotta run in its Blue Eyes, but it's not bad. This is a solid deck, and Dominus in Purge is definitely a good addition to Blue Eyes. And the extra deck, I don't think any extra deck monster conflicts with Dominus Purge. So Tyrant, Neo, Blue Eyes, Trishla. Okay, Trishla kind of does conflict with Dominus Purge. But again, you're not going to go into Trishla that often. It's just a tag off of a Crimson Dragon targeting your level 9 Black Spirit Dragon. Obviously, if you've purged earlier in the game, just don't go for that line. Not a big deal. This is just Trishla. This isn't even a mandatory inclusion in the extra deck. It's just another option because there's a lot of space. In fact, there's like 3 Spirit Dragons, which you definitely don't need 3 Spirit Dragons, but you know what? Nightmare, Kashtira Unicorn exists, so, you know, if you want a buffer against that, you can run the Spirit Dragons. Baron the Flutter does not conflict with Purge because Purge doesn't turn off wind monsters even. Silver Divine Dragon, again, this line you don't usually go into often. Like, you shouldn't be trying to end on double Spirit Dragon most of the time, but I mean it is available. And if you have a hand that's definitely afraid of Call by the Grave, then that's appropriate, even though you do play into Nib a bit. And then the one Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon, one Typhon. So Typhon is like the main conflict. Typhon and SP Little Knight. So obviously, if you just keep in mind, if you go Purge, just don't go into Trish, Typhon, or SP Little Knight. Again, these are not integral parts of your extra deck at all. You don't even have to run these if you don't want to, and they're not needed in every game. So even though they do conflict, it's not that big of a deal. Typhon is probably going to be SP is probably going to be the one that you miss the most, but it's also like you don't really go into, because you're dragging a lot with Spirit of Blue Eyes. You don't actually have a optimal way to go into SP a lot of time. The only way you go into SP is, I guess, you get your Spirit of Blue Eyes impermed, and then you can go with it. I mean, that's like very niche. Like this card's actually, the more I think about it, this card's probably, out of these 3 cards, this is probably the least necessary in Blue Eyes, funnily enough. So you can cut the SP. And Ciel's also being a light monster does not conflict with Purge. So yeah, blue Eyes. So next we have a deck that has fallen off a little bit in recent months with the release of the Fiendsmith Invention, and that's Voiceless Voice, or Assless Ass, if you're one Joshua Schmidt. And yeah, now the addition of Dominus Purge, it's not gonna like put Voiceless Voice back to its former glory or anything. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that Voiceless Voice is gonna be a tier 1 deck with the addition of Dominus Purge or anything, but it definitely helps. Like, Dominus Purge is a good card for Voiceless Voice at the end of the day. And yeah, this is mostly a standard Voiceless Voice list. We just put in, instead of like 3 of the different hand trap or different non-engine, we just put in 3 Dominus Purge. And Voiceless Voice is another deck that also searches a trap card as part of its engine, or as part of its combo, that being Radiance of the Voiceless Voice. And even though this is a continuous card, a continuous trap, this card will pop itself to pop your opponent's cards. So using Radiance to pop your opponent's cards will put it into the grave, and at that point that will make your Dominus Purge have its bonus effect too. So that's another niche benefit for running Purge and Voiceless Voice. I mean, the main reason is that Voiceless Voice is just a deck that doesn't conflict with Purge, so that's why you're running it. Again, the main conflicts you're gonna run into with Purge is Ash Blossom, but yeah, I'm sure by now you'll know what to do if you draw both these together. And as for the cards in the extra deck that conflict with this, so it's gonna be Garura and Chaos Angel with Dominus Purge, which these are, again, Voiceless Voice does not go into extra deck that often at all. So like, in fact, the Garura is literally just for Nadir Servant, and you can send Garura anyways, you just won't get a draw. So like, you miss out on 1 draw if you happen to Dominus Purge with Nadir Servant, which is like oh no, right? That's not a big deal. Odd Eyes Meteor Bird Dragon doesn't even have an effect, so that doesn't even matter. So like, you can still summon this versus Tenpai after you purge them, and you just can't activate the effect, but the continuous effect still applies for Odd Eyes Meteor Bird, which still shuts down Tenpai, which is very funny. And obviously Typhon conflicts with Purge a bit. Link Rebuild does not really matter. You can play this because it's a Link 1, not because it's a Link 1 Cyberse that you can go into Secure Gardener, not for its effect at all, so you know, doesn't really matter that it conflicts with Purge. And then SP, which, and I guess Sprite Alpha, but these are niche. Like, these are Sprite Alpha especially is something that you rarely go into. This is just something like in very weird grind states where you have a Herald that you want to bring back with Sprite Elf. That's really the only purpose of Sprite Elf. You can use Sprite Elf to revive Dino Mondo as well, but also because you run multiple Dino Mondo, you could just also made the Dino Mondo usually instead of the Sprite Elf, bringing back that Dino Mondo for Brave. But yeah, Dino Mondo, in it being an important one, does not conflict with Purge, so that's nice because it's an Earth. And Intis, the main send target of Nadir Servant, also does not conflict with Purge because it's a light. So as long as that's like, these are the important ones, and stuff like Carol, which is light, which is fine. Secure Garnet it's light, but it also doesn't have an effect, so it doesn't matter. Ferrogy, funnily enough, is another part of the Nadir Servant package where you go Maximus to send Ferrogy to Psycho a card, and Ferrogy also doesn't conflict with Purge. So yeah, most of the important cards in here are fine. It's just a couple niche ones like SP, Garura, and Sprite Elf that are the big conflicts with Dominus Purge. But other than that, Fairly standard engine. I mean, 3 low. You're much like the Blue Eyes deck, you're just maxing out on all your good cards. 3 low, 3 Diviner, 3 Saphira, 1 Seravis, 1 Maximus. Which, keep in mind, if you draw Maximus, you can still make this live if you draw like a low or any way to low, because then you can just go Linkuriboh into Secure Garna, put the Linkuriboh in grave, and then you can banish the Linkuriboh for Maximus, and then that's still fine. Even if you didn't open the Deer Servant, you can still make the Maximus live. The 1 Trias, the 1 Seravis, 2 Skull Guardian, 1 Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph, 3 Pep, 1 Extract, 2 Nadir, 2 Prayers, 3 Barrier, a Blessing, 3 Imperm, and Dominus Purge. Again, best combo in the game. Imperm plus Purge, or Imperm plus Dominus Trap. And yeah, the extra deck we kind of went over already, but 2 Entes for Garura, Herald. These are like the Nadir targets. You can play another Nadir target as well. Like you can play, what's it called? Cyframe Lord Omega. Since you can dump Omega and like put something back like a Peruvian Princess or a Shuffler or something if you want to. That's another additional option you can play in here. Meter Burst to summon off the Pendulum Graph if Tenpai is still around. Typhon, Secure Garna, Linkuriboh, Farigite again for the Maximus, for the Nadir Servant. The Sprite Elf can bring back Diviner of the Herald, or it can bring back Dino Mondo if your opponent controls a monster. And if Dino Mondo is special summoned, it can shuffle a target card to field and ritual monster in grave and shuffle it into the deck. It's not when Dino Mondo is a link summon, it's when it's special summon. So Elf reviving Dino Mondo can also trigger its spin effect. And obviously that also recycles resources from your grave too. Then an SP, just because it's SP, but again, you don't really go into this often, and it conflicts with Dominus Purge, so don't make this in games where you purge. That's like the biggest lesson here. It's like, don't make extra deck monsters that you lock yourself out of your Dominus trap cards. And then Underworld Guys is just there's space, and like this deck sometimes struggles with non-target cards that can't be targeted, or like pseudo towers. So like, you know, like for example, the new Max Metal Morph Red Eyes Full Metal Dragon that came out. But yeah, Voiceless Voice. There's not much to be said. Voiceless Voice mainly a mostly standardized deck by now. It's just that it can also run Purge. So here is one of the more interesting decks that can play Dominus Purge, and it just happens to work out perfectly, these specific engines. So obviously this is the Fiendsmith Hand Trap deck with Cyberse Gadget. So if you own Cyberse Gadget, feel free to give this deck a try. Now, there are 2 ways to build the Fiendsmith, the pure, quote-unquote pure Fiendsmith. You know, it's not pure Fiendsmith. I mean, we can't really play that right now. We don't have all of the Fiendsmith cards, so we can't really play pure Fiendsmith. But this is just like Fiendsmith plus Hand Trap piles. The other way to play this deck is with Bestials and like DPE, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. But that way to play that build cannot play Dominus Purge for obvious reasons, because Dominus Purge shuts you off from Dark Monsters. So running Bestials plus DPE with Dominus Purge, not really a smart idea. So if you want to play Purge, you got to play a deck more like this, where instead of the Bestials and hand traps like that and DPE, we're playing Kashtiras, and the Kashtiras are perfect attributes for Purge. In fact, every engine here is a perfect attribute for Purge. The Fiendsmith engine is light, which is fine for Purge. The Kashtiras are Earth and Wind, which also don't conflict with Purge. The Cyberse monsters we choose to play are Cyberse Gadget, which is a light, and Godskaver, which is an Earth, which also works fine with Purge. And then how these Cyber monsters go into the Fiendsmith engine is that you link them off into Link to Cyber, which is a light, and then they summon another body, and then you link that off into Link Devotee, which is an Earth, and then you sack Link the Devotee, and then you get 2 tokens out of it that are light. So nowhere does any of these 3 engines, the Fiendsmith engine, the Kashtira engine, or the Cyberse engine that bridges into your Fiendsmith cards, conflict with Dominus Purge at all, which is like just kind of amazing how that managed to work out. Oh yeah, the best part of this deck is this deck's name. This deck is called KFC, Kashtira, Fiendsmith, Cyberse. Don't know if anyone's ever called that before, but if they haven't, we should start making this a thing, because I think KFC is a much better name than Fiendsmith, Cyberse, or Control Fiendsmith, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Fiendsmith, Kashtira, Cyberse, whatever the hell. Like, yeah, KFC just rolls off the tongue a bit better. And yeah, even with the hand traps, we can choose to play hand traps that, you know, besides Ash Blossom, because Ash Blossom we have to run, but besides Ash Blossom, and we can run hand traps that don't collect with Purge. So we have Veilers, we have Droll, we have Maxi, we have Imperms, and you can even run stuff like Bell and Ghost Ogre. Just as you know, I'm running Bell because I have the alt art, so you know, might as well. I don't get many chances to use Bell, so if there's a deck where Bell is appropriate, like a deck here where that already runs like 17 plus hand traps, and you just gotta run. You just run one run. No. Talking is hard. You want to run even more hand traps, then you know Bell is probably the next in line, and being an Earth does not conflict with Purge at all, so that's nice. Ogre, same thing. I could probably honestly Ogre's probably better than Bell, but like I mean Bell's not bad. The Bell, especially if Azamina engine picks up, Bell gets a lot better with the Beatrice ban, and Azamina in a more Wanteds and more Deceptions and more Hollow Chain Wanted. Bell completely blows that play up. I guess Ghost Ogre also blows the Deception plays up because you could just Deception Ogre to Deception. So yeah, I guess both these hand traps get better with in a world without Beatrice. But yeah, then obviously Dotscaper, Cyberse, Gadgets. These are the 1-card lines into your Fiendsmith engine. You have the Fiendsmith engine itself, the Lurie, the Engraver, and 2 Track. You could run 3 if you want, but because we don't have Necro Trip and we don't have main deck Lacrima yet, Track by itself is not actually full combo, but I mean Track plus any hand trap is, so you can get there. Same with the Kashtira monsters, Unicorn plus any normal summon, including a hand trap, gets you the full Fiendsmith combo. Fender itself is not full Fiendsmith combo, so like this is kind of a weird card in that if you open Kashtira Fender, you actually don't get the Fiendsmith, which is kind of, unless you open like a real starter. So Fender is kind of weird. It's actually not mandatory. Like Fender is a cuttable card in the Kashtira engine just because it doesn't actually lead you to Fiendsmith combo. But I mean, you're already running 3 other Kashtira monsters, so you might as well run the Fender, right? This is a deck that has tons of room for non-engine anyway, so like 1 Fender doesn't hurt that badly. Race out the Birth Control, which again, the Birth you will always open this card. Called by Crossout, just because I mean, this deck doesn't care about hand traps too much, but I mean, Maxi is still an annoyance, and I guess you can cross out other people's Purges, which is not that big of a deal, to be honest, but yeah, then Imperms and Azure Statue with the Silhouette Rabbit. So here's where the extra comes into. Here, the extra deck is also really, really cool. So first of all, Silhouette Rabbit, because we're not playing DPE, because we can't, because it's a dark. Silhouette Rabbit is another end board piece you can make with two monsters. So like, you know how during your Fiendsmith combo, when you have say Sequence out and then you say Sequence for Lacrima or Sequence for Desiree, and you have an extra Sequence on the field, and you got to do something with the Sequence, and you want to link out the Sequence into something else before it equips to the Desiree. You can link out the Sequence into Silhouette Rabbit. Silhouette Rabbit is a light monster, so it works under Purge, and it sets Azure Statue, which summons stuff as a light monster, which does not conflict with Purge. And it actually synergizes with Purge because Azure Statue is a trap card then, and you can use Silhouette Rabbit to search a trap card, which then after you negate a special summon, the trap card puts itself in grave, which then makes your Dominus Purge's bonus effect live to destroy a card too. So yeah, that's a little neat synergy there with the Silhouette Rabbit, the Fiendsmith engine with the Lacrima Desiree, the double Requiem and Sequence, obviously great under Purge, and double Requiem is just like sometimes your first Requiem gets ashed, and then you don't have a way to do your Fiendsmith engine if you don't hard draw Engraver. So this is another way to just having 2, so that if your first one gets negated, you still have a second one to go into your Fiendsmith engine. M7 is cool as a light monster. Zeus is you don't really go into Zeus that often, but theoretically Zeus is a light monster that doesn't conflict. And then your Cyberse cards don't conflict. The ones that do conflict are IP, SP, Caesar, and Typhon. So IP is not that big of a deal. You just don't make IP if you use Purge. Like that's not that complicated. SP is probably a big one. Not having access to the SP after you get Purge is in a mid-range deck hurts a bit. So that's probably the biggest conflict. Caesar is like Appaloosa in Fire King, where this is mainly a going first end board piece. Like, you don't make this that much going second, I guess, unless you want to play around a weird line that plays around the Biru, but this is mainly a going first card, so if you're going first, you don't have to and you make Caesar, you don't have to. You can just set Purge, and then the Purge will no longer turn off your Caesar. And if you're going second, obviously, and you use Purge, then you're probably not making Caesar. You're probably don't have a making Caesar is probably not part of your best line going second, anyways. So the fact that it turns off Caesar when you go second is not that big of a deal. Typhon, turning off Typhon is also kind of a big deal because this is a deck that runs a lot of hand traps. So a lot of times if you don't have a real starter, just like it has like the Tenpai problem where if you don't open a real good normal summon or a Kashtira card, sometimes you just play Typhon control. And if you Purge, then playing Typhon control is a bit weird. Although you can still make the Typhon, right? You just can't use this Typhon to bounce a card, but you can still summon like a hand trap and then just make it a 2900 beater and then back it up with other hand traps. That's still fine. That still works. And then next turn you can like normal summon another monster, then go to your Fiendsmith that way if you make it that far. And yeah, SP is probably the biggest one to watch out for because this is a deck that can make SP very easily because this is you have a lot of free bodies. So just keep in mind, Dominus Purge, when you Dominus Purge your opponent as a hand trap, don't try to go into SP because that's not gonna work. But as long as you don't mess that up too much, then yeah, this deck is cool, and this is the the one way to play pure or to play Fiendsmith hand trap control while also playing Purge because you know the Bestials. The other way with the Bestials doesn't work. But yeah. So yeah, those are just some of the most notable decks I think that can play the Dominus cards. However, they're not the only ones. And if you think you have a deck that can play these cards, please go ahead and try them because I promise you're not going to be disappointed if you do.